Good evening, everyone. Today is September the 7th, 2023, and this is the meeting of the Town of Westport Personnel Board. This meeting is being held remotely in accordance with the Governor of Massachusetts' March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 20. On March 29th, 2023, Governor Healy signed a supplemental 2023 budget bill allowing remote and hybrid meeting options for public bodies through March 31st, 2025. This meeting is being recorded. Well, good evening, Gary and Nancy. Jess is here with us as well. So the sole purpose of this meeting is to go over the two proposals. The town administrator and I threw out the one that was over 100,000. Oh, it looks like someone joined it. Carrie, is that you?
It is. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's all right. We just got started. So I just wanted to see who that was. We're just starting. So the town administrator and I threw out the one that came in at over 100,000. To tell you the truth, I can't remember the name of the firm that it was. But so the only two real viable quotes we received, or proposals we received, were one from GovHR, which we're a little bit more familiar with, as well as McGrath Human Resources. McGrath Human Resources came in a little bit under what HR did, but HR.gov is much more familiar with many of the Massachusetts communities that they listed, and some that they even did not list in their proposal. So I guess I'm just going to throw it out there. Let me see, I have a couple of little factual things of the positions that are listed, and I believe this is quoted within the RFP. So 83 of the positions that they would be looking at are non-union, part-time, and or management positions. So the job descriptions on those I would call a little bit more suspect. Perhaps not all of them are as up to date as they should be. I can't say for certain that all of them are included in the personnel bylaws right now. And 39 of the positions that were requested are union positions, and I believe those have more definitive job descriptions, but are not under our purview, as you're certainly well aware. So the biggest bulk of it, 2/3 of it, certainly comes within the umbrella of the personnel board to view. I was disappointed that the proposals came in so high, and that the additional stipend for job descriptions is also rather significant. So, Gary, I think I'd like to start with you and tell me about your experience with what they did for Dartmouth, and whether or not that was a significant help for Dartmouth once they had this study done.
Oh yeah. So are we talking about the GovHR study?
Yes. Yes.
So is that who we're leaning to propose to use?
Well, even though they were a little bit more, I mean, I'll certainly be interested in both of them, but certainly GovHR, just based on their list, has done a lot of Massachusetts communities.
Yeah.
So a lot of the job descriptions and a lot of the roles that they would be looking at would be very comparable in order to come up with a salary, comparison. So, I would definitely be leaning more towards them because of familiarity.
Yeah. So in Dartmouth's case, we, just like Westport, had no really structured job descriptions, no structured salary tables. So what they did back in 2019, I believe, was, went with GovHR. And they did not provide job descriptions, though, because I think that was an additional cost that the town at the time did not want to pay, which would be substantially more than what we're looking at because the town's a lot larger. But so what they did was they, did this study. They reviewed. It's pretty systematic. I mean, they have a good and I'm not favoring GovHR, but it's because that's the experience that I have. So they had a good approach. They met with the department heads, they met with everyone involved, then presented it to the select board, and then ultimately for funding at town meeting. But we also included union and non-union positions, so it was not just non-union.
Right. Then that's the case here too. It would be both union and non-union,
Okay, yeah,
but it would
So-
not include the schools.
correct.
Right.
So it did not include the schools.
Right. Nor the police or fire.
Well, for Dartmouth, we're a district. So but for the police, I believe it did do the clerical for the police because we have clerical unions. You know,
Right.
obviously there's union. So it
Right.
didn't include like the police chief, I don't believe, or
Correct.
anything like that.
Yeah.
So it's similar.
This one may include the police chief because technically he comes under the personnel board, I believe. So,
Yeah.
so we may include the chiefs, but certainly not the rank and file.
No, right, correct.
But your overall experience with them has been good.
Oh yeah. I mean, let's face it. I mean, we did the survey in 19 timeframe, and having said that, you know, these salary surveys, unless they're being kept up with, and I'm not talking about continually contracting with a company like GovHR, but monitored internally, these things become stale and they become pretty much out of date. So if you're not using that as a baseline tool and then building your salaries off of that on an ongoing year, you basically paid for a study that becomes defunct.
Right.
And I think that's key to understand that even though we're going to have a baseline or starting point, this needs to be maintained. Now, we don't have an HR department in town, but you know, somehow, some way, it's got to be kept up with. You know.
Right. So Nancy, how about you? I mean, in your experience, certainly in your role at the university, I mean, that's also something you have to maintain across the university system, not only within Dartmouth, but across the UMass system.
Yes, each campus does their own compensation and classification. But broadly speaking, when I was looking at the proposals, they follow all the same methodologies that like we would use when we're looking to classify positions, same metrics, salary surveys. You know, maybe this will come later down the discussion, but you know, the one thing I was wanting to tease out is whether we're getting full job descriptions. I see for GHR, it talks about a brief position description. I mean, ideally, I just didn't see that explicitly stated, but maybe, like I said, we talk about that.
Yeah, it's a separate fee. In both cases, I think they both quoted $23,000 for full job descriptions, in addition to the compensation review.
Right.
I guess this is a question. It's escaping my mind at the moment, but how much did we appropriate at town meeting?
Only 30.
30,000?
Yeah.
So where would the rest of the funding come from? Free cash or?
Well, I spoke with the town administrator about this, and you know, there are opera funds that we have, you know, that there's free will. I mean, that we don't have restrictions on, so we could supplement it that way. The select board's budget does have a professional services line, which is funded, I don't want to say generously, but you know, is adequately funded, that perhaps it could come out of there, or it could come out of free cash, like you said. So, you know, if we came up 10, 15 short, there are a couple of pockets that we could go to try to find the additional funding. Jim felt very confident that he could perhaps negotiate the price down a little bit. You know, maybe the 43 we could get down to 40 or something like that. So he was hoping that maybe he could negotiate the price down a little bit.
Yeah, I would be in favor of getting job descriptions along with this, because I feel if we're going to do this, we might as well do it right the first time. And
Yeah, me too.
I think in absence of job descriptions, you've got a document that might just sit on a shelf. And if we're looking at recruitment, you know, which is a big piece of this, I think that job descriptions are important. Now, we did not, as I mentioned, we did not get the job descriptions in Dartmouth. So that leaves us scrambling for having to, find job descriptions that I think they're one and the same. If you ask me, in my opinion, the job descriptions should be correlated with the salary tables and the scales. That should be, we shouldn't cheap out. Believe me, I'm not the one that's gonna make the decision or want to be spending money. But I think that in this case, we need to have all of it.
I agree. If I can say, in terms of compensation methodology, you do not have one without the other. You need, they're like two sides
Right.
to the same coin, the job and salary. And what my worry is that we could have, what are we going to base the salary surveys on, the salary benchmarking on? I know they're going to do these JAQs, these questionnaires. They're going to go out, but those questionnaires really ought to be converted into position descriptions, so that we can have, so that in the future, when we need to reassess the salary, we've got the foundation for what that salary was in the first place. That was our biggest obstacle, I think, in recent years in trying to accurately price out jobs, is the job descriptions weren't complete. They weren't up to date. So and that really hampered us, right? We had a couple of instances where we had to have the managers go back, redo them, so we can get an accurate picture. So I agree, vital that we have those.
Right. In some ways, the job description is almost more important than the compensation because, our hands are tied to some degree, compensation wise. I mean, we can only pay what we can afford, but being able to identify the true role that many of the employees have, is the basic foundation. I would almost, if we had, and I'm not saying that we have to pick one over the other, but if we had to, I would almost go with the job descriptions first, only because that's what lays down the groundwork.
Absolutely.
And then at least you can do we could do public surveys on our own, trying to match up some of these other public jobs to see what they're paying. But without having those roles identified, makes it much more difficult. And I agree with you, Nancy. I mean, we've run into this with the planning board because we didn't have, a good job description. We ran into it with the zoning board of appeals, and, they had to rewrite the job description to fit the true job, not necessarily the person. So it was, we're faced with this all the time. Every time someone approaches us, particularly for an adjustment in pay. Carrie, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
I do actually. So did I misunderstand, or are we willing to write some of these job descriptions? Because if we are, I think we could use AI.
I didn't get a question.
Well, I don't think that we're putting ourselves in the position of writing job descriptions ourselves. I mean, I think that we were, hoping to have an independent body do that, and not, we're not truly equipped. I understand what you're saying about perhaps using artificial intelligence to be able to direct us, but I think if we're going to make this effort, we'd like to be able to do it professionally and do it thoroughly. The first time. The money that this town has saved by not having a human resources director, I mean, it's cost them a lot because of that. And it's this is some of the additional residual from not having an HR person there to be able to keep all of this up. I mean, the town administrator finds himself almost on a daily basis with HR issues regarding compliance with certain laws. I mean, he's really at the point where he feels that we need, even if we contract out with a firm, that this town really needs an HR firm to be able to monitor working conditions. I mean, I think they're facing 2 lawsuits right now regarding adequate working conditions.
Yeah, the point I think is, absence of this study, it's actually costing us money. So,
Right.
just by that example, the town is actually dishing out more money without having proper documents in place, like job descriptions or a salary scale. So do we pay, like, I'm only making up a schedule. I'm only making up a title, like a nurse, for instance. Are we overpaying that nurse? Are we underpaying that nurse? How does it compare to other communities? We need professionalism to figure that out. It shouldn't be the day-to-day task of a town administrator or the department head to be, calling around communities and saying,
Mm.
and are they picking equivalent communities? So in the long run, something like this pays for itself, in my opinion.
Right.
Mm.
I'm sorry, Carrie. I didn't let you finish your thought. I apologize.
No, I'm finished. I really got, you guys have said it all, everything that I was thinking.
Yeah. So I guess the question then to the group is, how do we want to, kick this back? I mean, there's nothing wrong with, as much as I would hate to have to wait. I mean, if we really wanted to go with both the study and the compensation study and the job description study, do we try to contract with one of these firms to hold a set price, and we wait for an additional, wait for town meeting again to appropriate the additional funds? Do we go with one part of this and try to fund the other part of it in the next town meeting, at least get things started? Where should we have to give an answer, I believe, by the end of September to one of these firms as to whether or not we're going to proceed. So how would you like to, how would you like me to approach this with the select board?
I mean, my feeling is that in looking at the proposals, it is missing the writing of the job descriptions,
Right.
that part. We definitely need that. It's without question. That has to be in. Maybe I was looking at it to see, maybe is there something that is we don't need? Did anyone notice anything in these that could be cut? Like, for instance, government HR had, well, I really liked it, but they had a thing in there where for 10 years they would review and update things, and I really like that, to have an ongoing support.
Right.
But we could maybe negotiate something away for the job description and maybe see if that's possible, and give them like a target range of a fee, like, what would 50 to 60 get us? What could we give up? But the job, for me, essentially what we want to get out of it are standardized job descriptions with
Right.
type, accountabilities, basic requirements, and basic educational criteria, right? So like 3 or 4 parts, and then a salary, and then a number, like and then a salary scale that comprises everything in the town, that under this purview. And then that has the job grade associated with the table.
Yeah.
So it's all standardized. That way there's no discrimination. There's no question of equity issues, because everything is divided by the job description, matches the grade. It's all been laid out. Those are the two, if I could say, the output that we need from the consultants. That's what we need. The extra stuff. And of course, going behind that is the work. What generates the job description is like the deep dive with the departments to ask questions about the nature of the role, the accountability, right? That's a lot of work right there for all these positions. Then the salary scales is like the external benchmarking, and then the internal, like the compression points. Like, is the nurse one above, the clerk of,
Right.
certain board? Like, where does everything rack and stank, rack in the grid? So kind of that's what we need. If we could put that to them, and I don't know if they could like add some revisions, but that's essentially what we're looking for. Maybe some extra stuff we could forego. That's just my thoughts.
So do you think that it would be, there would be any advantage if we could meet with the principals involved in both of these firms? I think that would be helpful.
I think that'd be so helpful and valuable. We can really, talk to them. They can get real clarity about what we want. It's so hard whenever we do RFPs, and like my experience, like without talking to them, it's hard to get at what a lot of the detail in the proposal,
Right.
and then we can communicate what we're truly looking for.
Right. Right.
Yeah, from me, my standpoint is, I think we need to get I think Nancy's correct. I think we need everything, because what I fear is we get job descriptions, they sit on the shelf, and then 3 town meetings pass and we don't get approval for anything else. We have opera money, so we can use that money. We have that we have the federal money that's pretty much unrestricted. For $100 and some $1,000, You know, we've got everything that we've needed for a long time, decades in this town. But I
Yeah.
don't see that cheaping out on it is the way to go, because like I said, my fear is, oh, we do half of it, and then who knows, down the road we don't follow up. You know.
Right, and then there would have just been wasted money.
Right.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah.
You know, it's one thing you're having great job descriptions, and if we have no salary and we have no idea what to pay them,
Yeah,
then
right.
we'd have to go out and do, like Gary was saying, our own benchmarking each time.
Right.
It's only half of the equation for compensation. That's why the terms go together: classification and compensation. You need the classification first to get the comp, and they go together.
Yeah,
So
I totally agree.
Maybe we have them in. I mean, maybe we have them in to speak on it, and then we can. I mean, I think it's more punch to tell the selectmen, hey, we've vetted this out, we've had them in, we've talked about it. We think that we need the entire package.
Right, right. Yeah, because now is the time. I mean, given that we have some of the opera money available, and perhaps a couple of other buckets that we might be able to turn to. I mean, now's the time to be able to get this done once and for all. And
Right,
and
guys.
hopefully-
The timeline for the opera money is running out, so we need to do it like
Right.
especially for the county money. If the county money, they're going to draw the line in the sand in June of 2024, and that's it. So
Right.
if there's money left over, we need to spend it.
Right, right. Okay, so I'll go back to Jim. I had asked him to join us tonight, and he is out today and tomorrow, so unfortunately he couldn't join us tonight. So I will go back to him and ask him to set up a evening meeting. I'm away next week, but hopefully in the next couple of weeks to go into this more in depth with the managers that they had cited here as being the primary principal managers that would oversee both of these tasks. So yeah, I'm looking at this McGrath group does mostly work in the Midwest. Hasn't done very much. Nothing that they've listed here is in New England, and GovHR has done an awful lot in New England.
Yeah.
I had noticed, Gary, I was surprised that they did not list Dartmouth as one of their, they talked about it within their study, but they didn't use Dartmouth as a so-called reference. I was kind of surprised. I mean,
Well, it was 4 years ago. I'm not sure if that's more current or.
Right.
Sorry, before I think of that, McGrath has something in here. It's on a page, the top of page 12, but it's in the classification analysis section. But the final point, it says job description updates. I'd love to ask them if that means, because there's a paragraph, they're going to use the job analysis questionnaire. It says, if desired by the town, the firm can either update the current job descriptions in their current format, or we can completely rewrite all the job description with a tailored yet standardized and compliant format. Yes, that would be amazing.
Right. So they have quoted an additional fee for that of $27,300 for job descriptions, and GovHR also quoted $28,000 for job descriptions.
So why was it in the proposal?
I know. So I don't know why they quoted those separately as a separate price. I don't know, because it's a base price plus extra money for job descriptions.
I see. So the cost for both of these is basically to do the job analysis.
Right.
And
The total cost for one is $71,500 and the other one is $79,000.
I feel like that's a lot to just produce half of what we need. Anyway, but it is a lot of work to do job descriptions. Okay. But they can do it. That's good that that's on the table at least.
But I mean, those are some of the things perhaps that we can tease out of them as far as, really what's involved for the extra fee versus, how do you do compensation analysis unless you have a job description?
Right. Exactly.
It's a chicken and an egg thing. I mean, how can they do a comparison of positions without knowing what the job description is in the first place.
I think what they
It
do,
sounds like a marketing thing.
I think the job description is like you're writing, it's more narrative. There's a lot of time to
Yeah.
write. They probably, for their questionnaires, job analysis, just use metrics like supervising, yes or no, checkbox, and that gains points.
Gotcha.
You know, does it require a degree? Yes. Whereas you're writing a job description, it's like writing 2 or 3 pages for each job. It's just time consuming, but they're probably using like a points-based system, you know, for each level of like authority and job thing. So, but okay, well, at least they can do it. And I think you're right, Cindy. If we meet with them, we can just tease out these little questions and just finalize that they understand what we're looking for and get the
Right.
right.
Right. Okay. I can't guarantee that we'll be able to get them both on the same evening. Should we allow 45 minutes per firm? Do you think that's a fair amount of time?
I think so. I think
Oh,
that's
yeah.
right. Yeah. I think
So I'll see if we can get it done in one evening. If not, we may have to have two separate discussions with them. It'll be interesting to see if their approaches are different from each other or not. You know, they're relatively close in range. I mean, GovHR was, you know, almost 20% higher. So we'll see what that 20% gets us, more than the other firm.
I think they were more personal. They said they would speak with somebody from every department, whereas
Okay.
the other one is more computerized.
Okay. Okay.
that's right.
Okay.
That's an important factor to actually speak to the department heads is useful.
Right. Right. And as Gary said, the GovHR did do that in Dartmouth, that they spoke with all of the department heads.
That's good.
Okay, well, I'll go back to the town administrator and see if he can contact them, and get a couple of dates that would work for us to do this. Wednesday and Thursday nights are the better nights for everyone?
I
Yes.
have a preference for Wednesday, but I can make
Okay,
Thursday too. It's just
okay. The only reason why I didn't do, I had planned on doing this last night, and I had a conflicting meeting last night, so I couldn't do it. But Gary, I seem to recall Wednesday is better for you as well.
Yes.
Okay, Carrie, do you have a preference Wednesday versus Thursdays?
No preference. Either
Okay.
is fine.
Okay, so I'll try to aim for a Wednesday evening, and tell him that we would like to talk with these people and see what they have to say.
that's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other issues that we can bring up that are not on the agenda? I don't think that I have not been approached by anyone. Yeah, I haven't been approached by anyone. I believe that the town administrator is currently negotiating with the Teamsters, which is the clerical union at Town Hall. I think he's in negotiations with them right now, as a matter of fact.
Oh, wow.
So, okay, well then I guess I'll look for a motion to adjourn then.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
How about a second? Carrie, will you second that?
I will second it. Yes.
Okay, great. Good. Okay, all those in favor of adjourning, unless anyone has anything else that they want to bring up? Nope. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, I will get back to you. I'll send you guys an email as to what he comes up with. He's out until Monday, so I wouldn't expect to hear anything until the middle of next week. Okay,
Mhm.
Okay,
Okay.
sounds
All right.
good.
thank you all for your time.